There is a moment that almost everyone experiences. Your alarm rings for Fajr. You hear it clearly. For a few seconds you are awake. And then a voice inside you says, just 5 more minutes. You know you should get up. You know it matters. But somehow your body feels heavy and your mind begins making excuses. The same thing happens when you try to stop a bad habit. When you try to study. When you try to be disciplined. Something inside you resists. Something inside you pushes you toward comfort. Islam has a name for that voice. It is called the Nafs. And understanding why the Nafs hates discipline may be one of the most important psychological lessons in Islam. Let me tell you a story. There was a young man named Adam. Adam wanted to become better. He wanted to pray every prayer on time. He wanted to stop wasting hours scrolling on his phone. He wanted to wake up early, manage his time better, and become the kind of Muslim who lived with purpose. He imagined a version of himself that was focused, strong, and consistent. But every time he tried to change, something strange happened. The first day he felt inspired. The second day he felt tired. The third day he started making excuses. He would say, I'll do it later. I just need one more day. I'm not in the right mood today. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and Adam began to think something was wrong with him. He thought maybe he was simply lazy. Maybe he had no discipline. Maybe other people were just stronger than him. But the truth was much deeper. The problem was not that Adam was broken. The problem was that Adam was finally noticing the battle that every human being has to fight. In Islam, the Nafs is the inner self that pulls a person toward desire, comfort, and immediate satisfaction. And one of the lowest forms of the Nafs is what scholars describe as the soul that commands toward evil. The part of the self that wants what feels good now, even if it harms you later. This part of the Nafs hates discipline because discipline threatens its control. And this is where psychology becomes so interesting. Your brain is not naturally built for discipline. It is built for survival, and survival often prefers comfort. Comfort means less effort. Less effort means less energy used. Less energy used feels safe to the body. So when you try to do something difficult like waking up early, fasting, lowering your gaze, studying, exercising, or controlling your temper, your brain immediately pushes back. It sends sleepiness, excuses, doubt, frustration, and discomfort. This is why discipline feels hard in the beginning, not because you are incapable, but because your lower self is resisting being trained. Think about it like this. Imagine a child who has always been allowed to eat sweets whenever he wants. If one day you suddenly say no, that child will not smile and say thank you. He will protest, he will become upset, he will cry. Why? Because he is used to getting what he wants immediately. The Nafs behaves the same way. If you have trained it for years to get comfort whenever it wants, then the moment you say no, it reacts, it resists, it complains, it becomes loud. This is why the early days of discipline often feel the hardest. You are not just building a habit, you are confronting a part of yourself that is used to ruling you. Adam began to notice this pattern. Every time he made a sincere plan to improve, he would feel resistance almost immediately. If he planned to wake up for Fajr, the bed suddenly felt softer than ever. If he planned to read Quran, his phone suddenly became more interesting. If he planned to stop wasting time, his mind suddenly told him he deserved a break. And little by little Adam realized something powerful. The voice inside him was not telling the truth. It was simply protecting comfort. That realization changed everything. Because many people lose the battle with the Nafs before they even begin. They hear the voice of resistance and assume it means they are not ready. They think, maybe I should wait until I feel more motivated. But motivation is not the foundation of discipline. In fact, one of the biggest lies the Nafs tells is that you must feel like doing something before you do it. That is not how discipline works. Discipline begins when you act while not feeling like it. And this is exactly why Islamic worship trains the soul so deeply. Prayer is not based on mood. Fasting is not based on convenience. Charity is not based on perfect timing. Islam teaches us to obey Allah whether we feel like it or not, because that is how the Nafs is trained. Every act of worship is not only spiritual, it is also psychological. It teaches the lower self that it is not in charge. Adam remembered something important. The Prophet, peace be upon him, taught that the most beloved deeds to Allah are those that are consistent, even if they are small. That teaching is deeply wise because the Nafs is not defeated through huge emotional bursts. It is trained through small, repeated acts of obedience. A person may feel excited for one night and make 10 promises, but the nafs is rarely changed by one emotional moment. It is changed by repetition. It is changed when you wake up for Fajr again and again. When you lower your gaze again and again. When you close the app again and again. When you choose the harder right thing over the easier wrong thing enough times that your soul begins to change. Adam decided to stop trying to fix his whole life at once. Instead, he chose one small act of discipline. He would wake up for Fajr no matter what. The first week was difficult. He felt groggy and annoyed. His mind kept saying, "You can sleep a little more," but he got up anyway. The second week was still hard, but something was changing. The resistance was still there, but it was weaker. By the third week, he noticed that his body was starting to adjust. What once felt impossible, now felt more normal. And this is exactly how habits work psychologically. The brain begins by resisting new effort, but repeated action creates familiarity. Familiarity reduces resistance. Over time, discipline stops feeling like suffering and starts feeling like identity. This is one of the deepest lessons in both psychology and Islam. You do not become disciplined because you feel disciplined. You become disciplined because you repeatedly do disciplined things until they become part of who you are. The Nafs hates this process because every repeated act of discipline weakens its power. Every time you say no to comfort for the sake of something higher, you are teaching your soul a new order. You are saying, "My desires are not my master." And that is why this battle matters so much. Because a person who cannot control the Nafs will always be controlled by moods, cravings, and impulses. But a person who trains the Nafs gains something rare: freedom. Freedom from being dragged around by every feeling. Freedom from being ruled by laziness. Freedom from being trapped in cycles of regret. Adam began to see discipline differently. Before, he saw it as harsh and restrictive. Now he saw it as a form of mercy. Because every time he pushed himself to do what was right, he felt stronger afterward. He felt clearer. He respected himself more. He noticed that the days he followed discipline were not empty days. They were peaceful days. His salah felt more grounded. His time felt more meaningful. His heart felt lighter. And this reveals something else about the Nafs. The Nafs promises comfort, but often leads to guilt. Discipline demands effort, but often leads to peace. That is the deception. The lower self says, "Choose ease now," but the result is heaviness later. Discipline says, "Choose effort now," but the result is ease later. Islam teaches delayed reward constantly. Pray now even if you are tired. Fast now even if you feel hungry. Give now even if you love your wealth. Lower your gaze now even if the temptation is strong. Why? Because the soul is being trained for something greater than the moment. The Nafs only sees now. Discipline sees what comes later. This is why the Quran describes different states of the soul. There is the soul that commands toward evil. Then there is the soul that blames itself, the self-reflecting soul that begins to feel regret and awareness. And eventually there is the peaceful soul, the soul at rest, the soul that finds tranquility and obedience. That peaceful soul is not created overnight. It is built, it is trained, it is refined through struggle. So if you feel resistance every time you try to become disciplined, that does not mean you are failing. It means the battle is real. It means you are finally confronting the Nafs instead of obeying it blindly. The goal is not to remove the struggle completely. The goal is to stop surrendering to it. Adam still had hard days. Some mornings he still wanted to stay in bed. Some days he still wasted time. Some moments he still felt weak. But now he understood the process. Instead of seeing those moments as proof that he would never change, he saw them as reminders that the training must continue. And that mindset changed everything. Because the disciplined person is not the one who never feels resistance. The disciplined person is the one who stops negotiating with every excuse. The Nafs will always hate discipline, because discipline breaks its illusion of control. But every time you resist the Nafs for the sake of Allah, you become stronger than the version of yourself that only lives for comfort. And that is the real struggle. Not becoming a perfect person overnight, but becoming the kind of person who keeps choosing what is right, even when the lower self protests. So the next time you feel that resistance, the next time the alarm rings, the next time your Nafs whispers, later, remember this: that voice is not your ruler. It is only your test. And every act of discipline is a step toward a calmer heart, a stronger soul, and a life led by purpose instead of desire.